to My Bookshelf Slays, a podcast where writers and readers discuss killer books. I'm so excited to introduce my guest, Mandy Robotham, the writer of Mrs. Spy, a brand new book. She is a well-known historical fiction writer, and this is a whole new direction for her work. Mandy, let's talk about what inspired you to write Mrs. Spy.
I am a huge fan of spy fiction. I love it. Slow Horses, of course, is the new big thing, but old stuff, Len Deighton, Frederick Forsyth, all of that old 60s stuff. 60s is my favorite period to write about. And I just felt every time you watch a Bond film or those slick spy stuff, you get someone handing the spy, the big male spy normally, you get them handing them a dossier, and I think, oh, who makes that dossier? In the same way that I always think, oh, who's looking after the kids? Who's doing the shopping? Who's doing, practical things that my brain thinks about. And I always think, who makes that dossier? Who takes those pictures? Who does that? And so I started to think that maybe there was someone on the ground, and that maybe that someone was someone who then had to go off and do the shopping, and they got a family at home to feed, and so that's how the character of Maggie Flynn started to evolve with me. Is that I just thought there are people that have lives, do all the things that everybody else does. You never see spies eating anything in spy fiction or in spy films. They never eat anything. And I like cafes and eating, and I think, well, they have to eat, don't they? Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I tried to make her human, first and foremost.
Well, she felt very human to me. I identified with her on a few levels. Let's talk quick about bunions. Like,
Yes.
you give her one, a really painful one, and it comes up all the time.
Yeah, I mean, poor lamb, as you get older, these things, any woman of a certain age, Maggie is 45 in this, 45, your body starts to sort of get tired. And she walks the streets an awful lot, she's a surveillance officer called a watcher. They were called watchers in MI5. And they spend a long time on the streets, and so she has to have comfortable shoes and lots of plasters, and her bunion plays up, and all those practical things again that we don't see when glamorous female spies are running along in high heels. Don't think that really happens.
Not a bit. Let's talk about how cleverly you set up this story. It's the 1960s. You have a holler back to World War II, obviously, as part of the impetus for MI5 and all of that. Talk about how you used that to create this world in 1960s and what made you decide to place the novel in this time period.
I really love the 1960s. I'm Beatles mad, which I think comes across in the book. Huge
That was
fan of the
great.
Beatles. I was born in 1965 in London, so it's very personal to me. It's just that era of everything exploding. Fashions were brilliant, music was fantastic, and here she is. She's not 15 or 16 or 17 in the middle of all this exploding colour. She's 45. She's got a 15-year-old daughter. She feels it. And so I wanted to contrast that. And so, of course, being 45, she has a past in the war. That's where the backstory of her and her husband comes out. She was an ambulance driver in the war, and we get to learn that he was in the Special Operations Executive, the SOE, which then, without giving too many spoilers away, it lends itself to the new life that she and he have. So basically, the 60s, I could write about them forever. And also, no mobile phones, no technology. I can't do any of that technology. And so how she communicates is she runs into a phone box, and she tacks a note under the phone box with a bit of chewing gum. I mean, that's just how they used to do it, old style.
Was very old school, and that gave the story a lot of action, which I think technology sort of strips away from
It does,
spy
yeah,
fiction.
yeah. I take my hat off to modern day spy writers, because they have got, you can, a text takes one line in a chapter, whereas if you're getting somebody to walk across London to give a message, you've got a whole half a chapter there. So how they manage to keep that adrenaline going with technology, I don't know. I will never write anything, I think, where mobile phones are involved. because beyond that, I lose the technology.
This book is just on full throttle, top gear from page one to the very final chapter. There is so much action in it. Can you talk about your writing style and how that's evolved to be so intense?
Yeah, I don't think I started out that way. I started out with my first book set in quite sedately in a way in World War II at the top of a mountain, effectively in Hitler's Berghof, and it was the 9 months of a pregnancy, and so that's inevitably quite slow. But I think as I've gone on book by book, I've realised that with readers of historical fiction, particularly in wartime fiction, they want action quite quickly. They need a hook of action. So you can't lead in very slowly. It doesn't work that way. They want something to happen. The difference with wartime is that things do happen. Bombs go off, people get killed. There's an air raid. There's always something going on. But in peacetime, as a writer, you have to make it happen. It's actually more challenging to write in peacetime. I'm lucky that where Maggie is, the Cold War. It was a very invisible war, but it was nonetheless very visible to spies on the ground. She's constantly in motion. She rarely stops.
She never stops. The tension just builds and builds and builds up till the very end. And there are so many curveballs thrown at the readers. And I do not want to give away any spoilers because I want everyone to read this book with the same level of that I was feeling. But there are so many wild twists and turns. Your imagination must have just been working in overdrive as you came up with the story.
It comes up gradually. The twists come gradually. I'm not a natural psychological thriller writer. Again, I take my hat off to all those people that end up having all the Harlan Cobens of this world that have twist after twist after twist. And also, I don't plan very much. I have a beginning, I have an end. I knew the last line from the very beginning. I knew that last line and I wrote it quite quickly. But how I get there is a bit like snakes and ladders. I go down
Wow.
one bit and up the other and down the other. And I really have a very scant 2-page synopsis, maybe 2 pages. And I open up my laptop every day and think, ooh, what's going to happen today? I don't know. And so I'm very much, I'm a pantser, not a planner. So
Wow.
the twists just evolved, I think.
It was super twisty and super exciting to read, and I felt so engaged in her voice too. The voice in this book is so dynamic and exciting. Is
Thank
that
you.
your natural writing voice, or did you adopt that just for this book?
No, this is more wry, I think. There's more wry, there's more humour than I've ever had in the past. In my other books, there are touches of humour. There is glib remarks, there's a bit of humour. Of course, there was a lot of humour in wartime, as well as all the hardships. But I think with Maggie, I was allowed to I didn't set out for her to be funny in any way. It just came. I'd had a bit of practice with my previous book for this publisher called The Scandalous Life of Ruby Devereaux. It was again first person, and Ruby had been allowed to have that voice as well, that sort of very inner monologue type of voice. So I think I'd honed it there, but yeah, Maggie just came. She just came from the first page. And in fact, actual fact, I started writing it in third person, as in she, Maggie, and then the first chapter just wasn't going well, and I sent it to my agent, and I said, "What's going on here? I can't quite unlock her." And she said, "I think you need to do it first person. You need to do it first person." And so I tried that, and then out she came, out she blew.
And she is fantastic from start to finish. She is so intense
I think so.
in a
She's
good
quite
way.
complicated, complex.
She's a woman. Women are complex.
Yeah, yeah,
Look, I mean, compare her life to Frank's, right?
yeah, yeah, and also I love the fact that she's got this complex relationship with her mum, who
Yes.
is great, but also quite, brittle at the same
You
time.
never know when she goes home, like, what is she going to walk into? That was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. I live in a town in the Cotswolds where I am surrounded by artistic people, creative people. To see somebody walking down the street with something really bizarre, wearing something bizarre, is not unusual at all. Bizarre children's names, you name it, we have it in Stroud. And so I was able to build on all the kind of people that are around me all the time in their bizarre creativity.
And when you take that bizarre creativity and you put it in the 1960s, where there is so much color and so much
Yeah.
craziness with the models and the plasticky outfits and all of it, is you just bring it all in it. I felt like I was just in a time machine, just dropped into it.
It's great. And I'm a huge fan of Mary Quant as well, so I had to get Quant in there. I mean, if I was half the size person I am, I would be wearing Mary Quant. But while I was writing it, I was actually knitting a Mary Quant dress,
Oh,
which I used for some publicity photos. I knitted the biggest size. It took me absolutely ages because you can imagine knitting a dress in wool. The biggest size was like a pencil, so I had to find a 15-year-old, very, very slim schoolgirl to actually model it for me and do the tights and the hair and the lipstick
oh,
and everything like that. And it worked really well, but no one else can wear it really because it's just so small.
yeah,
So yeah.
Twiggy.
Yes, it was Twiggy basically. I knitted it for Twiggy.
Did you have to do a lot of research to get all of the little details about the spy world, or did you kind of know that as you were writing the book?
No, lots of research. So look, for this one, I read a lot about MI5 and MI6. I read the autobiography of Stella Rimington, who's just sadly passed away, who was the first woman head of MI5. All those little details about the inside of the headquarters come from her book. Obviously, there are not that many photographs because of the covert nature of it. I just read an awful lot of diaries, anything I could get my hands on. I read an awful lot of newspapers as well. So every day, anything that's in the book and it says it was in the newspaper of that day, it was in the newspaper of that day, apart from a couple of little fictional bits that, are necessarily fiction in the plot. So for the whole month that spans the book, I went through every single copy of the Daily Mirror on the archives. You can get an awful lot of information. You know what fashions are being paraded in the newspapers. You know what people are buying. You know the toothpaste they're buying, how much it costs. So what's on the television? So when it says they sit down to watch an episode of, it really was on that day.
Oh,
Um, I'm quite particular about those sorts of things. You could say a little bit anal about it.
you know what though? I could tell how authentic it was, but it didn't feel like overkill at all. Not to this reader.
Good, good. Because that's the last thing you want to do as a historical writer is just to say, look, I've read all these books. I'm going to shoehorn everything in there. I went to all the pubs. So the Blue Post pub is still there. Um, the pub in the countryside is about 4 miles from where I live, and it's
Oh
still
wow.
there and very much going. That's the Laurie Lee pub.
Very,
All of that is very local to me, and so I thought, why not put it in? I live
yeah,
here, and I needed a country pub, so I
yeah.
put it in.
I'm going to ask you a non-writing question. So, what is the beverage that you would pair with Mrs. Spy for a reader?
Oh, coffee. I think, yeah,
Huh?
coffee. Yeah, I'm a big coffee fan, so the coffee features in all my books.
Hey,
Coffee and coffee shops.
and Maggie's a coffee drinker too. She mentions more than once her need for caffeine.
Yes, she does. She does, definitely.
I loved Maggie as a character, but all the characters were so well developed and came so strong off the page. Who is the character that you would most love to hang out with?
Oh, I think Frank. I mean,
Yeah.
Frank's a darling, isn't he? Frank's a darling. He's irritating. He's irritating and probably drinks too much. He bets too much on the horses. He doesn't probably look after himself very well. But he's loyal to the core. He'll do anything for Maggie, and he is loyal to the core. And it wasn't until after I finished that I realised everything coming out of Frank's mouth was my dad. My
Oh,
dad was born and bred in North London, and he wasn't what you would call a Cockney because he wasn't born within the sound of Bow Bells, but he spoke very much like that. He spoke in a Cockney way, and it wasn't until I finished I just thought, oh, that's my dad. So it's quite personal in the sense that Frank is, my dad wasn't a police officer, but he very much spoke in that down-to-earth way.
He was such a charming character, and the resourcefulness that he brought to the table too was just constantly astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, it's old school, isn't it? He'd been on the streets for years as a police officer. He'd perhaps seen it all. He was only working out his time because his wife had run off with his pension. He was working his time, but it didn't mean to say that he wouldn't launch himself in there for a bit of extra excitement and to do the right thing. I think all my characters, it's about doing the right thing. Would
Yeah,
you, if you were? So I'm constantly posing the question to myself, what would you do in that sort of situation? I like to think that I would be courageous and do the right thing, but would you? Don't know.
right, right. Is there a plan for a sequel to this book? Because I'm telling you, I'm all in on it.
Well, there is, and it's finished, and it's just literally in the last couple of days just gone into my editor, um, and it will take us to pastures new. If she likes it, if it's approved, because I feel I could easily do the same thing again. Um, but there wouldn't be much fun in that. So I feel like we have to take a step forward. She has to
Absolutely, you
progress.
do. Hmm.
It's 3 years on, so we're still in the 60s. It's 1968. Flower power,
Oh,
protest, all of that. And I won't say anything else, but we take her to pastures new.
fabulous with new challenges with her daughter, I'm sure, and with new experiences under her belt to bring her to a next level as a spy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Understanding that actually female spies didn't have a lot of reach at that point. I'm playing a little bit with the time span. There weren't really any female case officers until Stella Remington's era when she went in. So I am playing with the timeline a little bit of that, but it's allowed. It's fiction, you know.
Oh,
It's not.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's fiction.
That is so exciting. So, did you write this book with any particular audience in mind, or were you just writing it because it was a passion project?
I wanted to bring a female audience into the spy genre. I read a lot of hardcore spy, all of those ones that have got the grey and the black cover with the pop of red on that, and they're great. A lot of them do have female characters these days, and there are some female spy writers that are brilliant, that Ava Glass and Charlotte Philby, coming up, but it's not very mainstream. I think female spies are having their heyday at the moment, what with Black Doves on the TV and so much going on. But they're set in contemporary times, and I wanted to stay in the past with that. I've got an idea for a Maggie 3, and let's just see how Maggie 2 goes down, to see whether we can bring her back again.
I would be excited for that because she is a wonderful world you built, and the characters are both so compelling.
Thank
Is
you.
there a scene that didn't make it into this book?
Scenes, yes. Oh, do you know, I can rarely remember the scenes that don't make it in. But yeah, there wasn't an awful lot of pruning. I tend to write to my word count. I'm not one of those writers that puts in 120,000 words and then we have to do lots of, because I absolutely hate cutting. I can't bear cutting. I think there are a few minor scenes, but nothing really that was, what you see is pretty much what went down
All
there.
right. And what fuels your imagination as you're working on a project of this scale?
Oh, people. It's always people. I'm so nosy. I'm really nosy about people. I'm always sitting on the train going, oh, I wonder what they do for a living, and where are they going and what are they doing? I was a midwife for 20 years, and you get a lots of contact with people. Now I don't work as a midwife. I don't have that contact. So I think my imagination has just taken over. And sometimes I write characters that I quite like to be. I wrote about a journalist quite a while ago who was kind of very courageous and feisty, and I thought that's the journalist I'd have liked to have been. So I think my imagination has taken over as some of my work world has gone into the background.
Is there a question that your family or friends keep asking you after they get done reading this book?
Mainly, is there going to be more? Mainly, which you've already covered. But yeah, mainly, is there going to be more? And will Frank be in it?
Yes, I know. He's got to be in it. He's got to be part of the world.
Well,
Oh,
new cast of characters, new cast of characters.
okay.
You have to move
Oh,
on.
Slimy Bob. Will we see more of him? Maybe.
Oh, Slimy Bob. I could bring Slimy Bob back in number three, I think, perhaps. Slimy
Yeah.
Bob, yeah, he's a good. And my dad used to be a painter and a decorator, and I sometimes used to go to work with him when I was much younger. And I've known a few Slimy Bobs. There are a few Slimy Bobs still hanging around London. I think he's quite a good character with the bacon
I
sandwich and the cigarette at the same time.
You have a lot of characters doing many things at the same time, and I think that's so real. Your sense of observation, your skill set there comes through really strong because Maggie's a watcher. So
Yeah.
her job involves just sitting there paying attention to people. Like you are Maggie.
Well, I think so. And again, I was a journalist first off. That was my first job when I came out of university. And then I was a midwife after that. And I was very much a birth midwife. I liked being in birth, in home birth, and that sort of thing. And so you sit there for a long, long time and you observe. Um, and there's a lot of sounds and things you see and the looks people give each other. So it's not all about speaking. It's that intuition. And like I say, I am incredibly nosy. I don't know a writer that isn't actually very incredibly nosy. All the writers I know, we're all very nosy. It's part of the
You,
job.
it's curiosity, right? I mean, you have
Yeah,
to have it if you're
yeah.
going to write well. You have to be curious.
Well, you have to be curious on behalf of your readers, because if you're not curious, then what hope have you got of thinking like, oh, what's going to happen in this book? And every time I start a new book, it's of course the very words chapter one are terrifying, but it's also quite exciting. Where's it going to take me? I know the basic bones of the story, but really, I mean, Frank wasn't supposed to be there, but
Oh,
he just popped up and then he grew and he grew and he grew and he grew. So characters always surprise me.
that's great. Mandy, I thank you so much for sharing your time with me and our listeners today, and I wish you the best of luck with book two. We'll be excited to hear more about it down the road. And thank you for listening to My Bookcase Slays. This is a featured product of the Authors on the Air Radio Network.
Thanks very much for having me.